First Amendment, which is also part of the Bill of Rights, is arguably the most important part of the Constitution to us as individuals. This amendment makes it illegal for the government to create any law that limits one's freedom of speech, prevents the media from printing any information they would like, prevents people from gathering to petition or assemble, or that forces an individual to follow or practice a particular religion. The First Amendment is extremely important because it prevents the government from gaining too much control over our country. It ensures our individual freedoms and is essential in order to keep our democratic society.
Hi, today we are here with Officer Ramelli.
Good afternoon.
Would you like to describe what your role is here at Scripps Ranch High School?
Basically, I'm kind of like security monitor, mentor, police work. So I'm here for the community of Scripps Ranch to make sure each day that you feel somewhat safe coming to school, knowing that, hopefully outside intruders won't come, there won't be ongoing bullying. It'll be just a good experience during your high school years. So that's my job here, and to eat as many donuts as I can.
Okay. So whose phone is this? Because it just
Is it
we can
mine?
cut this. No, it's fine.
Should I stop recording it? Or
Oh, yeah. What are your thoughts on the First Amendment regarding police dot cameras and chest cameras?
I like it. It shows more transparency. It's there for our protection as well as protection of society. So having to get to see what we do almost in a real-time venue is good. It makes cops a little bit more honest. We'll get rid of some of the lying, and it makes people honest too, and they'll stop lying. So
Okay. Cool. As a police officer, to remain unbiased, or do you ever find your own freedom of speech restricted?
not anymore. Now that I'm older, doing the job being unbiased is pretty easy for me. It might have been a little bit more difficult when I was young because you're more emotional and you have different beliefs. But as I've grown in law enforcement, just having an open mind to all situations, it benefits me and the community. So you don't get all tied up into things. And the only downfall of that, I'll say, is people sometimes think that you're unfeeling because you're not all emotional over things. A good example, oftentimes I'll have to arrest a student or contact them and they're really upset and they don't see me empathizing with them. They don't see me sad or angry or emotionally distraught, because I'll tell them, well, I'm having a good day, you're the one arrested. It's because they've done an action, I've done my job, and it's not personal. It's just what we have to do to get through the day and then move on beyond maybe a act or a moment lapse in character. So I don't hold it against them, and I think they appreciate it.
Well said. Okay.
God, I'm babbling a lot. It's hard to babble.
It's a perfect amount. Okay. Why do you think the First Amendment is so important?
First Amendment is like with all the constitutional rights. You don't want to give up anything. It's a great country where you can voice your opinion and not feel that secret police are going to come and arrest you. Being able to voice your concerns or just your feelings about different things is definitely a positive in the United States.
How much do you believe the First Amendment should protect protesters?
Protesters is a difficult avenue for police work because protesting has its value. You can get out there, you can make it known why you're upset. But on the other hand, you don't have the right, I don't think, to make other people upset with your protesting, to stop traffic, to infringe on other people's rights. So as we protest, and it's always been like that, they tend to turn violent quickly, which is a shame, because then whatever your protest and your words and your information was, it gets lost in the violence, the police coming in trying to suppress the violence, which, no, you're not suppressing the violence, you're suppressing free speech. So it's a sticky situation.
Definitely. How do you believe the First Amendment should be applied in situations like Charlottesville?
So just reiterating or recapping, that's the
Yeah.
white supremacists ran into the crowd.
Right, with the car.
Yeah, well, it seemed like it was going peaceful,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's always
Okay. Yeah, this is a better
Did
question.
it still like save the other video though?
Yeah.
a good question about the Charlottesville, like instances like Charlottesville where violence accompanies the First Amendment. How do we get around that?
Yeah,
Because
like
that-
who gets punished?
Well, I mean, wherever First Amendment is, violence is never the answer. Because, so if you want to do that, we can. Because that's a good question.
Okay, yeah. So I guess what I meant more was like when it comes to like the rogue person in a situation like Charlottesville where otherwise it was peaceful and protesting was going well. How do you handle when almost inevitably violence becomes a factor?
Unfortunately, it seems like more and more subgroups of the American society are going to violence. They believe that historically, good changes came out of violence, whether it was 1776 where we broke off from England, and they think that lasting conversations will be done with violence. Maybe. But in the meantime, if that's your brother, sister, or family member who was killed, you can never replace that. America has a good forum for change. It's called voting. And I think we need to have those conversations, and people who are upset with mainstream need to get and become active. Just as in the 60s and the 70s, certain activists became government officials. They did run for office and they did make change. So change is necessary, but violence should never be an answer.
When do you think freedom of speech turns into punishable hate speech?
At high school, you guys aren't allowed freedom of speech. Just sorry. Freedom of speech and hate speech. Anytime, I think everybody knows. If you're being hateful towards someone, we know the difference.
Yeah.
But the question is, how do you legally legislate it and protect the First Amendment? And that's very difficult. Because it's every time you take away part of the First Amendment, you may not get it back, which isn't necessarily good. And unfortunately, there are people out there on both sides who would like to take more of that away from us. So you cannot voice your opinion, whether you're on the left or the right, because they see we have an agenda. So we have to be very careful on that. And there's no solid, it's a gray area. What is hate speech? Well, bomb the government is hate speech. That's pretty easy. I'm going to shoot up a school. That's pretty easy. But when we're attacking individuals, what's hate? It's a civil thing oftentimes. It's disheartening, to say the least, that you see a lot. I think in the high school realm, you'll see more bullying or sarcastic comments than in your whole life. It's just, we're grown, we're learning, we're talking. So we gotta quickly learn when you get into college, into the world, that to hurt other people's feelings isn't what we're about. Building up, helping out, being servitudes to society.